Now, I know that you're also coming up with your book, right? The Hawk Method,
Yeah,
which
got
is
one of the
gonna
first copies here.
perfect. Yes. So in that book, I think there is one specific principle that you talk about, three elements that every business should know when it comes to marketing to basically have a successful business. What are those three elements?
Yeah, it's awareness, nurturing, and trust. So how that breaks down, and these are what we call the three principles of marketing, and it's what we've used for years to grow businesses, how we assess where their problems are. And so awareness is really introducing your company to a new customer. And that is what most people think of as marketing. It's advertising, it's PR, it's word of mouth. It's the things that drive new attention to your company. But what most people miss is the nurturing part, because most people don't understand that when someone first becomes aware you exist, they don't just buy something. Like, and people understand that like rationally. Like if I like told you like when's the last time you saw an advertisement and bought immediately versus like took some time to think about it, maybe saw the ad again, and then eventually you came around and like I've seen this company everywhere. All right, I'm going to check it out. Like it takes time, and that's called a purchase cycle. And so during that period, what you do is super important to actually help accelerate the purchase cycle as well as get a higher conversion at the end of that cycle. And that can be weeks to months, just to be clear. It's usually not days or hours, it's weeks and months. Even at a $50 purchase in the US, you're talking about a 3-week purchase cycle. At $100, it's 5 weeks, $200 about 6 weeks, and it scales from there. So you really have to focus on what you're doing there, and that's the nurturing piece. And then the last piece, trust, synonymous with brand, is really what we've found is, at least in the US, 75% of people won't purchase from a company they don't inherently trust, meaning if they've never heard of you, they want to see third-party validation, like PR or influencer marketing or testimonials, reviews, that kind of thing, because you can borrow trust in that sense. If they trust the reviews, if they trust that influencer or that celebrity, that can help build your trust early on. And then once you start to build a bigger brand, then what you consistently deliver becomes your trust. If you become well known for something, that is your trust. McDonald's, people know what it tastes like. People know McDonald's at this point. It has a brand. It's also got a brand of being unhealthy. It can be good and bad, but all these different, even Coca-Cola, same thing, like not great for you, but you know what it's going to taste like. Everywhere in the world, a Coke is a Coke is a Coke, and that's, they built a brand around it.
Interesting. Now, these 3 points that these 3 elements that we spoke about, awareness, nurturing, and trust. Awareness, yes, I understand a couple of ways that we can spread awareness around a specific business is Google marketing, ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. Now, if someone
TV,
yeah,
video, TikTok, all of it.
commercials, exactly. Now, according to you, if someone had to start off, let's say, let's focus more on a startup, as to when they want to start up. What are some areas that you think, some mediums at the moment today that are really important?
So startup is a wide term, but the scrappy way to do it, if you're just getting started, you're bootstrapped, my favorite way to build awareness for a company is to try to find partnerships, because it's inexpensive, it's super powerful, it creates a lot of trust. What I mean by partnerships is find people targeting your same customer and do collaborations with them. Cross-sell, sell their stuff to your customers, they sell your stuff to their customers. Depending on what type of business you are, if you're a consumer, it's obviously more of like mass email exchanges, things like that. If you're B2B, literally just have your sales team sending each other business, or if you're the seller, send them introductions, have them send you introductions, because it doesn't cost you anything other than time. And in the beginning, when you don't have a lot of money, time is the resource you do have. And so spending that time on partnerships is really powerful. And then over time, then starting to figure out which ad channels might be good to complement that. And that's all about seeing the context where the advertisement is running. And what I mean by that is you can target the same people on Google or Facebook, and they're the two good comparisons. The difference is on Facebook, it's basically you can target someone based on their interest base, where they are, who they are, and have someone similar to your typical customer during a time when they're basically telling you they're doing nothing productive, because 99.9% of people on Facebook are just wasting time. And so it's a good time to target someone. The problem is timing is a problem. Like, meaning if you have a product that needs to serve a need, like let's say you're an attorney and you serve people that, and in India, I'm trying to think of, like, you're a defense attorney. So if you committed a crime, I can protect you. Well, how am I supposed to find criminals on Facebook and just decide that they need help? Like, it's really not going to happen. But on Google, if someone's searching for a defense attorney, boom, a criminal defense attorney, let's say, now I can be in front of someone. And so that just like, so you have to figure out with your product or service, which one's going to serve you more. Eventually you want to do both, because as you get big enough, creating some awareness in the market and in your area, it becomes powerful too. But where you start really has to do with the context in which someone is receiving that ad. Because on Google, I'm actively searching for something. I'm looking for a defense attorney. So there you go. You want to show up. It can be expensive, but you
Interesting.
want to show up. So that's the kind of thing you have to think through, whether it's Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, TV, radio. What is my customer doing at that time? And is that a time that is good for me to reach them? Because demographics, which I'd say a decade ago was much more bigger topic in marketing, don't matter anymore because you can reach about anyone anywhere.
Wow. I mean, this is really interesting, Eric, what you've just pointed out, right? Rather than, because I know a lot of people are kind of just, funneling in their money for Instagram promotions, Facebook promotions. But this was one of the very crucial point that you just brought out. And this is like a light bulb that I hope a lot of people get, because this is interesting. Now, the second part that you mentioned about was nurturing, right? So what's the practical tip where we can work on nurturing?
Yeah, it's really understand your purchase cycle is the number one. So actually track from the time you send someone an advertisement or and there's different ways to track this. It's hard, with cookies going away, it's going to be harder to track when's the first time they saw your ad, but right now you can. So from when they saw your ad to when they purchase, what is that time on average? Figure that out.
Hmm.
And then during that time, collect email addresses when they come to your site, collect phone numbers. SMS marketing is also really powerful. Make sure your website converts well, like make sure you've built it in a flow and it loads fast and all that. Make sure that you have chat bots enabled. Like there's all these different tools you can enable, and then create content. So during that period, the idea is how can you engage them, both reinforcing your value proposition, which is where I use email marketing. Like, hey, here's what our company's all about. Here are our best sellers. Here are all the reasons you should be buying. While they're thinking about buying, continue to follow up. Also, create content that serves the same aspiration that your company does, but isn't necessarily just selling your product. And what I mean by that is aspiration doesn't have to be a grandiose term. Like name a product right now. Let's talk, like let's go on the cuff here. What would be a product you would go buy right now?
Me, maybe a
Yeah,
shoe. Maybe a shoe.
perfect.
Just
Hey,
thinking.
let's say a running shoe. Do you run?
Yep.
Perfect. Perfect. There you go. So running shoe. Why do you run?
To stay healthy.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly right. So you're not buying a running shoe for the sake of running shoe. You're buying a running shoe to stay healthy. So now let's go create, if I'm selling running shoes, I'm now going to create content around being healthy and staying healthy. Here's, some health tips. Here's some diet tips. Here's some other things that go all around the idea of why you're buying the shoe. Now I'm reinforcing that value and that interest, but I'm doing it in a way that I'm not selling you. And this does a couple of things. One, it brings you in more often than just a purchase decision. You're going to get engaged more and want to see this site more than just, you're not going to come back and look at the shoe page over and over again. Generally, some people do, but it's not a common thing. I'm already hitting you with emails about, why you should buy the shoe, why it's the best shoe you've ever seen, why these celebrities love it, all these different validators that help you go, okay, maybe I should try this shoe. At the same time, I'm sending you health content and creating like actual content around being healthy. So now you're going, I like this brand. This associates with what I'm trying to do, and I feel good about this. It's a feeling thing. And it's also engaging you more, which inherently, if I'm getting you to my site more to engage more, you're on average going to buy more frequently. You're going to have a higher conversion rate, and I'll probably have a higher lifetime value because now you're going to keep coming back because maybe your running shoes 6 months from now get torn up and now you need a new pair. Well, I've kept you engaged. So that's where nurturing comes in. Plus, the one other secret with content is you're going to be a lot more likely to share that content than you are the shoe. And so you're now going to tell your friends, oh, check out this list. They published it's got to be good content, to be clear. It's not content for the sake of content, but you publish this list of 10 ways you can improve your running. And you're like, oh, wow, this is perfect. Hey, my friends that I go running with, check out this list. That's a lot more likely. Now all those friends know about my running shoe company as well. That's nurturing.
Nice, nice. I like the part you mentioned that not just selling your services, hammering them from all the corner places, but rather, crafting your content around what is the benefit, right? Apart from that, what exactly are the other values that you get, and how do we understand? Because that is actually building credibility as well, right? That why you're doing things. Interesting. And the trust. I know this is one of the most toughest part, building trust. How
Yeah.
how can that happen?
Yeah, I think it's a constant moving target, but there's a few tricks there. So I already mentioned, obviously getting third-party validation, some other trusted party to say that you should be trusted is the early, easiest way and most important way to do it, because early on you can say as much as you want about how great you are, and nobody cares. Or consistency builds the brand after that. A good example of this is Zappos. I don't know is Zappos popular in India?
Apples?
Zappos, yeah.
No, not that
Yeah.
much. Nope.
Okay, so in the US, Zappos is a shoe website that became massive, multi-billion-dollar company because they were known for customer service. Like I'm gonna back to running shoes. I'm gonna buy my Nikes regardless. I don't, like I'm gonna buy Nikes. I'm not gonna be sold on something else. So now I'm gonna figure out where's the best place to buy them. And Zappos decided their best differentiator was customer service. And so they constantly enforced, they even wrote a book called Delivering Happiness. They're like, they wanted to go above and beyond and be the best customer service ever, so that people would always, when they wanted to buy shoes, go to Zappos over even their direct company, because they knew that the customer service was incredible. And they found that that was going to be their niche. So not only did they focus on it, so they focused on delivering happiness and being the best at customer service, which became their brand, but they also talked about it a lot. And that is the part that I think a lot of people miss, is it's actually both. What you're consistent with becomes your brand, good and bad. So the opposite of this in the US are the cable companies. Like the two big ones that I know are Cox and Comcast in the US for TV cable companies. And they're known to have the worst customer service ever. They're terrible. People call them the devil. Like they are really, really bad to work with. And that's going to be a problem for them at some point, because once people have an option, which they don't right now because of the way that it works in the US, but once they have an option, they're going to avoid them. And I guarantee these companies blame something else other than their poor delivery. It's the same way people talk about Uber and taxi companies. People say, Uber crushed taxi companies because they, it's like Uber disrupted taxi companies. They were innovative, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, what disrupted taxi companies was that the experience sucked. That it was always a guy, his credit card machine in the US, as I'm saying, the cliches is the credit card machine's broken. You can't use your card. They're yelling at you. It smells bad. It's like the whole experience really sucked in taxis. And you couldn't get them when you needed to, like all these things. And Uber just went, well, we can just do all the things that they're doing wrong, right? And that's how the competition came in. So with your brand, what I just said about taxis, it's not true of all taxis, but it's what became regular delivery. You regularly would get in a taxi, the guy would be yelling at you, their credit card machine would be broken, it smell bad, and the brand for taxis became pretty negative. So it's the same thing with your brand, is what you deliver becomes that, but also what you talk about. And like, it's important to say, like, if, again, with Zappos, they talked about being the best at customer service. Were they actually? Yes, they had good customer service. I don't know if they're the best or not, but they made everyone think about it. And there's a confirmation bias that can work to your detriment or your benefit. And confirmation bias is one of the most powerful things with human psychology. If someone thinks something, it is really hard to change their mind. It is really hard. You see it with politics. You see it with a lot of things. Like once they're committed to an idea, they're committed to it. And so if you get them to commit to an idea that you are the best company to deliver your product or service, it's going to take a lot to break that commitment. And that's a great way to, and you have to reinforce it. But the moment you reinforce it, they're hooked. And that's a very scary but powerful tool when it comes to people.
It's more like setting up a belief, right? That once you like something and it's like, I think these guys are the best. And now you're more loyal to that specific brand. And you're not.
Well, and if you can conflict there, so then let's say you make a mistake, you start getting the benefit of the doubt. So like Zappos, if someone called and had a bad customer service experience, but everywhere they look, it says they're the best at customer service, they're going to go, oh, it must have just been a fluke. Not this company sucks.
True. Absolutely. Otherwise, if it's the other way around, where everyone else is saying, the service is bad, and you had the same experience, you're like, oh man, these guys are
of course, this place sucks. Yeah.
Absolutely. Makes sense.